Today I'm going to show you how to make another little basic project that's fairly quick moving and fairly basic and simple. This is a right angle weave stitch embellished with ladder stitch in between to extend the units apart from each other. It makes a really pretty classic design that's very easy to wear, easy to sell. People love these little things, and it's also it moves pretty quick, so you can make presents from them if you'd like and still have plenty of time to make a few. I, towards the end, went ahead and decided to throw in a pair of earrings to go with it. So at the end of the video, I just kind of add the earrings. So in my material list, I did not say that you needed 2 ear wires, but if you want to make the earrings, I will add that amount of crystal. If you make it this way, you will need to have 16 more crystals, and you will need to have ear wires. Also, I mentioned that you can do this with 4mm bicones, and I do a sample towards the end to show you how to do that. If you use bicones, you're going to need to use 4 times as many crystals. So just keep that in mind as you go through the material list. Now, like I said, this is a really pretty little basic set. It's just adorable. So I'm hoping you'll all enjoy it and make some Christmas gifts. Let's go ahead and look and see what we'll need to make this today. Okay, so for this project today, we're going to use 6mm bicone crystals. I'm using a Montana Sapphire Swarovski 6mm zillion crystal. And you can do this with 4mm bicone crystals, but you have to put more than 1 in each slot. You have to put 4 in each slot, whereas we're just putting 1 in each slot. So you'll need 4 times as many 4mm bicones if you do this. And I'll show you at the end how to put some beads on a unit if you're using 4mm. But for the purposes of this video today, we're going to use the 6mm. And you'll need up to 32 of them. It depends upon the length that you make of your bracelet. I'm going to make a 7.5, 8-inch bracelet today. So I'm going to have 8 units, so I need 32 crystals. If you want to make a smaller bracelet, then you'll just go down 4 crystals in your total number for each unit that you subtract. Then you'll need an 8/0 seed bead, and I'm using my typical Toho seed beads, my galvanized silver. I'm using it in 8/0, and you will need some 11/0s. I'm also using this little slide lock clasp today. It's a little magnetized 2-loop slide lock. And you can use, of course, any kind of clasp you want. You just have to adjust the ends of your bracelet to accommodate the clasp you want to use. I apologize for my hands. I've beaten them up. I cut my finger yesterday, so I apologize for the shape they're in, but I'm trying to move, and I'm packing, and I'm working outside, and I'm making a mess of my hands. So I apologize for that. Let's go ahead and get started with this project. 8 seed beads onto your needle. We're using size 8/0. We'll pick up 8 of them. Now, you'll want to have a comfortable length of thread on your needle. You may want to start with a really long length, 2 wingspans. If you do not want to extend your fire line, you'll probably still need to. People are asking me a lot about how I get through with thread. Now, I've mentioned it many, many times. If you're using fire line, and only if you're using fire line, you can extend your fire line by tying a square knot and burning the ends of the threads that you're attaching and pulling them tight. It works very well. It's very strong. There is a video called Bead Weaving, Joining Fireline for Bead Weavers on YouTube, and I suggest you watch that. Now, if you're not using Fireline, you have to tie off and tie back on. So I get a lot of questions about the thread length, and you have to add thread on almost all projects, so you'll have to learn some kind of technique that works for you. I extend my fire line. Now bring these 8 seed beads all the way down to the end of your thread. And now you're going to want to leave a very long tail, 12 to 16 inches, maybe more, depending upon how much you like to work with. I'm not going to do that right now because it tends to get in my way while I'm making a video. but you will need to leave a very long tail, because on your end units you will make a couple ladder stitches and you'll put your clasp on with it. So after you've got your 8 seed beads, your 8 seed beads all the way down to the end of your thread, come up back through the first 2 from the tail side, hold on to them and the tail, and pull your beads into a circle, just like this. And now we will sew back through all of these beads 2 at a time. We're going to do right angle weave, and we're going to use 8 beads per unit. So we want to sew through them 2 at a time, so it kind of starts to square it up a little bit. But it doesn't always work either, but we're going to do it that way. We're going to go past where our working thread and our tail meet, and then sew back into 2 more units past that. So we're going to go 2 beads here, and 2 beads here past where our tail and our working thread meet. So this is what I have. Now we're going to work through 2 beads at a time. We're going to be creating little squares. They will shape up into squares as we embellish them if they don't shape up as we do our units. So don't worry about that too much. We are going to work through 2 beads at a time, as I said. So we're coming out of these 2. We're going to build a unit here, here, and here. We're going to have 4 little units, and each unit will have 8 beads. So we're coming out of these 2. We're going to pick up 6 more because we're going to share those 2 beads. So we only need 6 for our unit of 8. We're coming out of this side. We're going to go into the opposite side of the 2 beads we're exiting and pull through. Now we have 2 little units like this. We need to sew through this entire new unit. And when you're doing 1 needle right angle weave, I always like to secure my units very well. You can go ahead and move into the next one, but a lot of times they'll be sloppy and they'll pull, and so go ahead and sew through the entire unit 2 beads at a time, and then exit where you started. Now we need to build a unit here. So we're going to come through these 2 beads here. So we're going to turn our little piece, go through these 2 beads right here. Now we're going to share these 2 beads, so we need to pick up 6 beads. So we're going to pick up 6 beads onto our needle. We're coming out of this side. We're going to go into the opposite side of the 2 beads we're exiting and pull. And now we are going to sew 2 beads at a time all the way around this unit we just made to secure it and make it neater and establish some tension. You want these units to be as neat as you possibly can and as tight as you can get them. Okay, so now we're coming out of where our 2 beads on the side here after securing the unit. We need to create 1 more unit because, like I said, each one is going to have 4 little loops. So we're going to go up into these 2 beads here. This time we are going to share these 2 beads and these 2 beads. So if we have 4 on our unit already, we only have to pick up 4 to make 8 in our unit. So we're going to pick up 4 beads onto our needle, like this. And we're coming out of this bead. This time we're going to go into this bead over here and pull through. Bring the beads down. Then we're going to go up into the 2 we started in. And we are going to sew all the way around 2 beads at a time. Now we're back where we started, so that unit is secure. Now my units don't look exactly square, but as I do this next step, it'll square them up. But always remember, you're just going to work in 2 beads at a time. Each side of your box is going to have 2 beads, and you'll straighten them up as you do them. So we're going to work up into this bead right here, and we're going to add our crystals now. So as we do this piece, we're going to make the base, and we're going to embellish it all in one swoop instead of making the piece and then coming back and embellishing it. So we're going to pick up an 11-0 seed bead. We're coming out of this corner here. We're going to pick up an 11-0 seed bead, a crystal, and an 11-0 seed bead. And we are now coming out here. We're going to go into the opposite side and the opposite end of the beads. So I'm coming out the top of these, I'm going to go into the bottom of these, and I'm going to pull my embellishment down into a diagonal, just like this. Make sure it has good tension. And now I am going to move into, I'm coming out of these beads in the middle, I'm going to move into the top beads of my next unit. And I'm going to pull my thread through and turn it just so my hand can operate a little bit easier here. And now I'm going to embellish from here to here. So I need to pick up an 11-0, a crystal, and an 11-0. I'm coming out of this side of these beads here. I'm going to go into the opposite beads on the opposite side. So if I'm coming out of the top here, I'm going to go into the bottom here. And I am going to pull and bring my crystal and my seed beads around and pop them down and make sure they're nice and secure. And now I'm going to sew into the next unit the 2 side beads, and now I'm coming out of a corner again so I can go from here to here. So I'm going to pick up an 11-0 seed bead, my crystal, and an 11-0 seed bead. I'm coming out of this side of my beads. I'm going to go into the opposite set of beads on the opposite side and pull my embellishment down, just like that. Make sure you have nice tension. Turn your unit. Come up the 2 side beads here. We're coming out of the middle here. Let me tighten my crystals again. Go up into these 2 side beads here. Now you can see we're forming a little square. The embellishment will hold it nice and neat. Now we're going to pick up an 11-0 seed bead, a crystal, and an 11-0 seed bead. We're coming out of the top of this unit of beads here. We're going to go over to the opposite beads and the opposite side, which would be the very center, and push through. Bring your embellishment around and pull it tight, just like that. Now I want to secure this, so I could just start my ladder stitch here, come through and start my ladder stitch, but I don't want to do that. I want to sew all the way down and come around here so that my embellishment on top stays nice and tight. So I'm coming out of the center beads. I'm just going to come down these beads here on the side, and then I'm going to come down into these beads here. Just 2 at a time. And now I will start working my length this way. So now we're going to make it a little extension to lead us over to our next unit. So what we're going to do is we are coming out of these 2 little beads on the side here. We're going to pick up 2 8-0 seed beads. We're coming out of this end of our 8-0 on our unit. We're going to go into the opposite end of the 8-0s and pull our thread through. Bring them down, make sure they don't get up around any of your other beads. Bring them down tight like this. And this is just a little ladder stitch we're going to do. Back off just a little. And then we are going to go back up through the 2 beads we just added. And then back down into the 2 beads on our unit right here. And pull our thread through. Now we need to get back up into the beads that we just added. So we're going to go back up into them. And we're going to pick up 2 more. Now I'm sewing through these quite a bit because they are an extension and they need to be neat and tight and strong. So we've added our 2, we're going to go back down through them, back up through the 2 that we connected to, back down into the 2 that we just added, and we're going to pull very tightly, make sure they're nice and neat and strong and tight. Now we're going to add one more set. So we need 2 more 8-0 seed beads, and we're going to go through the opposite end that we're exiting, and then we're going to go back up through the 2 that we just added, back down through the 2 we're connected to, and then back up the 2 we just added, and pull tight. Now we're going to sew back down through these beads in our unit and get over to this side. Now we could go ahead and start our next unit and then connect our beads for our ladder on this side after we make our unit. However, it's a little bit more difficult. It just gets in the way more to do that. So what we're going to do is we're going to sew back down. We're coming out of this side of this bead. We're going to sew back down into our ladder stitch like this until we get back down to our unit. We're going to go through the 2. At this point, we're going to turn it over so we can see. We're going to go back down into the 2 on the unit right here. I have a knot in my thread. Hang on a second. Sorry about that, but there we go. And now we're coming out right where we started to connect our ladder unit. So we're going to go into this unit in the center and follow our thread path around until we can get around this unit to where we need to add our next ladder stitch. Now we're going to go into the center beads here. I'm going to turn. I'm going to go into these 2 beads on the side here, and then we're going to go into these 2 beads right next to where our other ladder stitch is, right here. Pull through and then turn your piece back over. Now we will begin our next ladder stitch. So we're coming out of the 2 little beads right here. We're going to pick up 2 8-0 seed beads. We're going to go into the opposite side we're exiting and pull. Then we're going to come back through the 2 beads we just added, pull tight, go back through the beads on the unit, and then back up through the 2 beads we just added. Make sure that your stitches are nice, tight, and neat, and then add your next 2 8-0s. You're coming out of this side, you need to go into the opposite side and pull. Go back up into the 2 you just added. Go back down into the 2 that you're attached to, and then back up through the 2 you just added. Pull tight, pick up 2 more. Go through the 2 seed beads that you're attached to. Go through the first 2 or the 2 you just added. Come back up through the seed beads you're attaching to. And then come down through the seed beads you just added. Make sure they're nice and neat and tight, like this. And now you have your first unit and your first extensions. Now we're going to build from these extensions our second unit. So we are going to need to pick up, we've got 2 seed beads here. That will be a part of our first unit. So we're going to pick up 6 8-0 seed beads onto our needle, like this. Now we're coming out of this side right here of our 8 seed beads on our ladder stitch, we're going to go into the opposite side and we're going to pull them tight like this. And now we're going to sew around the beads we just added 2 at a time. And then back through the ladder stitch units like that. And that's what you should have. Now we need to get over to here to add our next unit on the side, or we could add this one too, but we're going to go ahead and sew all the way over here so that we can add our next unit, because we're going to have one here, one here, one here, and one here. So we need to sew over. We've got it secured, but we're just going to go through them again. So get my tail out of there. We're going to sew 2 beads at a time until we get to these inside beads right here. Now these 2 inside beads and these 2 last beads on our ladder stitch are what we're going to work in. So that means we're going to have 4 beads on our first unit already. So we're going to go into the ladder stitch. Like this. Now we have these 2 beads and these 2 beads, so that means we have 4, so we're going to pick up 4 more. We're coming out of this bead here, we're going to go into the 2 beads we started in, right here. And pull. And then we're going to go back into this unit on the ladder stitch here. And now we're going to 2 beads at a time sew this and straighten it out and secure it. So I'm going to go into these 2 beads. Whoa, that wasn't good. There we go. We're going to go into those 2 beads, and then we're going to go into these 2 front beads here. Then we're going to go up into these 2 beads here. So basically I'm just sewing around 2 beads at a time like I've done before. Now I'm secure, but I need to work down here so that I can start my next unit. So I'm going to go through these 2 beads. When I turn my work, go through these 2 beads here. Go through these 2 beads here. And this is where I will start my next unit. So now I have 2 beads right here that will be the beginning of my next unit, so I need to pick up 6 beads to make my 8. So I'm going to go ahead and pick up 6 beads onto my thread or on my needle like this. I'm coming out of this side, I'm going to go into this side. Then I'm going to sew all the way around this unit 2 beads at a time. Now I'm back in my connecting unit, or my connecting beads from my previous unit. I'm going to slide up into these 2 beads right here. Now I need to use these 2 beads and these 2 beads to form my next little square. So if I have 4, I'm just going to pick up 4. Like this. So you have 2 here and 2 here. You're going to go, coming out of this one, we're going to go into this one. Then we're going to go back up into the 2 that we started in. And we're going to square up and secure this unit, sewing through 2 at a time here. And work our way back to the middle, like this. Now, when you add your crystals, you can either start from an outside corner or an inside corner, but you always want to start from a corner and make sure that all your beads lie the same way, at a diagonal. I'm coming out of this bead here, but just so I don't confuse you, I'm going to go ahead and sew up into this bead here, or this unit here, and start from the very corner so that you can see how the beads should lie. So I'm coming out now of this unit right here, and I need to put my embellishment on. So I'm right between the wall, the little side beads, and the connecting beads here. Now I'm going to pick up an 11/0 seed bead. If you always work from your ladder stitch down, then it'll keep you from being confused. So just work your way up to a corner on one of those units. It doesn't really matter as long as you put the beads on in a diagonal and all of them facing in. It doesn't matter what unit you start in, but let's start here. Okay, so I've got my embellishment now, my 11/0, my crystal, and my 11/0. I'm coming out of this set of beads right here and the top of them. So I'm going to go into the opposite set of beads in that unit in the opposite side that I'm exiting in this set of beads. So if I'm coming out of the top here, I'm going to go into the bottom here and pull. Just like that. Now we're going to need to get over to this one to add a little embellishment here. So we're coming out of these beads here. We're just going to turn and sew into these beads here. And now we are going to connect from here to here. So we're coming out of this set of beads here on this side. We're going to pick up our embellishment. We're going to go into the opposite set of beads on the opposite side. So I'm going to turn. I'm coming out here. I'm going to go into the middle beads here and pull. Just like that. Now I've got two beads going in towards the center at a diagonal. Now I need to get over to this unit so I can do the same thing. So I'm just going to come up to the corner of the unit. I'm going to pick up an 11/0 seed bead, a crystal, and an 11/0 seed bead. I'm coming out of this end here. I'm going to go into the opposite set of beads in that unit and go into the opposite side that I'm exiting. So if I'm exiting here, I'm going to go into this side here and pull, just like that. Now I need to move over to this corner. I'm coming out of these beads here. I will pick up these two here, square it up, pull, and then I'll pick up an 11/0 seed bead, a crystal, and an 11/0 seed bead, just like this. I'm coming out of this set of beads here. I need to go into the opposite set of beads on the opposite side. It's down here in the center, in the middle of all this stuff we just added, so we just have to kind of pull through here. Bring our embellishment down, just like that. And now you have two units. We're going to start a ladder stitch here. So we're going to need to sew down. We're coming out of these little center beads right here. We're going to sew through these side beads. We're going to sew through these beads here, and we're going to start a ladder stitch. Pick up two beads, and then go through the new ones. Then go back through the ones on your unit. And then back up through the ladder stitch here, the two beads you just added. Pick up two more, go into the opposite side you're exiting, pull them down, go through them again, go through the beads on your unit, and then make one more set. Go through the new ones, come back through the attaching ones, and then back through your new ones again. Now we're going to sew up our ladder stitch around our unit and get over to this side. So we're going to go through each unit like this. Till we get into the attaching beads, and then turn it over. And sew up the middle of the next unit here. Sew into these beads here. So we're just sewing around the unit. Make sure your crystals are tight on the other side before you do this. And before you start your ladder stitch, make sure your crystals are very tight. Then come down through the side. Come down through these two, turn it back over, and start your ladder stitch. Make your 3 units of ladder stitch, and then start your units of right angle weave again, and go to the length you want. I made 8 squares with ladder stitch in between each one of mine, and you can do however many units you want. So if you want to make a 6-inch bracelet, or around 6 inches, you'll probably do 6. So it'll be about 6.5 by the time you clasp it. So you'll just have to judge how many units you want. Either make 6, 7, or 8, and we'll be back. Okay, so I have made my 8 units with my extensions in between. And at the very last one, I went ahead and did my ladder stitch. I did 2 units off the base unit. So I've got this last pair that are on the actual unit, and then I did 2 sets of ladder stitch on top of that. And now we're going to add our clasp on this end. So what we're going to do is we're going to pick up an 11-0 seed bead, an 8-0 seed bead, and grab our clasp. Leave it together at this point, because that way you won't get confused and sew it on the wrong way. Just grab a hold of it and go through the top loop here. Line it up to your piece. And then we're going to go back through, let me get over here. We're going to go back through around the little loop into the 8-0 like this, and pull it down to our piece. And then we're going to pick up another 11-0 seed bead, and we're going to go through this side of the ladder stitch now, like this, and pull. Now I'm going to sew up through the 11-0s, up through the 8-0, around the little clasp. I cannot talk. In through the loop of the clasp and back around, so that I can secure this clasp on. So go up through the 11-0, up through the 8-0, around the clasp loop, down the 11-0, and back through the ladder stitch, and do that about 3 times, and then we'll come back. Okay, so I have secured my little clasp on this side. I'm coming out of the ladder stitch here after securing my clasp. So now I'm going to go down into the very next set of ladder stitch right here. Then I'm going to go into the ladder stitch on my unit. I'm going to turn my piece over, and I'm going to sew down these beads, down over across these beads, up and over here, so that I can get back up into my ladder stitch here. But you have to go around the entire unit, or you'll cross threads, and in right angle weave you don't want to do that. You want to follow the pattern of the thread path, the original. You do not want to cross. So we're going to go into here, and I'm going to turn it just so I can get up these beads here. Beads are a little crooked, and that also kind of straightens them out. And see, now they're a little better. Not a lot, but a little. And then I'm going to go into the first, or the little unit, or the 2 beads that my ladder stitch is attached to. I'm having a difficult time talking today. And then I'm just going to go back up into my ladder stitch, just like this, and turn my piece back over. Okay, so I'm coming out of the ladder stitch here now, and I'm going to do the same thing I did on the other side. I'm going to pick up an 11-0 seed bead and an 8-0 seed bead, and I'm going to drop them down to my work. Then I'm going to come up through the loop of my clasp. Then I'm going to go down through just the 8-0, like this, and straighten it out. Pick up another 11-0, and then go through my ladder stitch. And now we will do the same thing. We'll sew around this in the same path that I just showed you several times. Then you'll sew down your ladder stitch into your main body of work. Pick up a thread bridge, tie off, sew a little bit more, cut your thread off, and we'll be back. Okay, so I went ahead and put my other end of my loop, secured this side, and then I just turned it over. I sewed back through the ladder stitch, turned it over, sewed down into a couple units, grabbed a thread bridge, did some knotting, and sewed back through. And I'm done with this side. I cut my thread off. Now you're going to put your needle on your reserved tail thread, and you're going to go down to the other side of your bracelet, and you're going to add your units of ladder stitch. Smart me accidentally got a gold bead mixed in with my silver one, so I'm going to have to change that because that's going to drive me crazy. But anyway, you're just going to go down to the right where your thread is exiting, and you're going to go through the top beads, and you're going to do your ladder stitch just like you did in between all of your units and at the other end. And you're just going to do the same thing. Just add a couple of 8-0 seed beads and go through them, and then 2 more, go through them and back through your original ones after that, like this. Then you're just going to sew back down into the bottom ones, turn it over, go down through these beads, and sew around it just like we have been doing into these two here. Up through these two here. Just following our original thread path. Then into the two top here. Just like this. And then go ahead and do your ladder stitch on this side here and add your clasp. When you do that, sometimes I think it's better if you just leave it together, or you can just bring it over, grab it apart like this, and then sew it on, just to make sure you have it the right direction. Anyway, go ahead and do that, and we'll be back. Okay, so I went ahead and sewed around my clasp, adding the other end, and this is what it looks like. And this is what it looks like on. Now this is a pretty big bracelet. It's a little big for me, but you can reduce the size by reducing either your end pieces of ladder stitch a little bit, or you can just take a unit completely off. So if you took these two off here and added it together, you would have it quite a bit shorter. Or just make 7 units or make 6 units. This is 8 units. So that's how you would reduce your size, just reducing down the units. You still want to have some ladder stitch on the end though. Anyway, that's what that looks like. And now I'm going to show you how to make a little simple pair of matching. So to make a little simple pair of earrings, you're going to do 2 units exactly like you did in the bracelet. Just make your one, make your ladder stitch, and make your second one. And then we won't make the ladder stitch the same on this side. We'll do a little different. So I'm coming out of my top bead right here after making my last unit and securing it, or my last embellishment actually. I'm going to pick up one 11-0 seed bead and go into the next bead, but I'm going to go between these two top beads right here. And see, I'm coming out between them, just like this, and pull that down in there. And then I am going to pick up an 11-0, 2 8-0s, and an 11-0. And then I'm coming out of this little bead right here. Let's get close again. I'm coming out between the two beads. I'm going to go between these two beads on this side right here. And I'm going to go through the 11-0, whoops, go through that 8-0, go through the 11-0, and exit again where I'm originally exiting, just like that. And pull my beads around, just like this. Now I'm going to climb up into my new beads that I added. I'm going to go up the 11-0 and then into the 8-0, right there. Just like this. Then I'm going to pick up 2 more 8-0 seed beads, and I'm going to do a little ladder stitch right here, just like this. And then I'm going to climb up into the new beads, back down into my first beads, like this. Back up into the new beads, and then I've got a little ear wire here, little lever bag. I am going to pick up an 11-0 seed bead and then go through my ear wire like this, drop it down. Actually, I'm going to pick up 2 11-0 seed beads. Sorry about that. I'm going to pick up 2 11-0 seed beads, otherwise it's not going to work. 2 11-0s and an 8-0, just like this. And drop them down. Sorry, design change. I'm making this up as I go, you know. Can't help it, that's the way I do things. And then I'm going to get another 8-0 and 2 11-0s and come back down into my ladder stitch here. Let's see how that works. Yeah, that'll work. There's lots of ways you can put this on, however you want. If you don't want it to be a little loop like that, it doesn't have to be. You can design however you want to put your ear wire on. And I'm just going to sew around all the beads I added and back through my top ladder stitch here. And then back through all the beads I added. Now you can make this shorter if you don't want this big of a loop and you don't want your earring to be quite this long. You can make it shorter, or of course you can just make it 1 unit too. You don't have to do 2 units. You can just make 1 unit and attach it to your ear wire. That will work just fine too. Go up through it. And then I'll just go down into my ladder stitch and into my work and tie off. And that's a little earring. Now you can also, what I like to do a lot of times is turn it over and put my crystal embellishments on the back side too. So you could just sew through, put an embellishment on, put another embellishment on, sew through, put another embellishment on, and just do that to where both sides look like this also. You can do that also. And actually that makes it a little more weighty, but it kind of fills it out and makes it look prettier. So either way, works really good. Okay, now I'm going to show you how to use 4mm bicones in the same design instead of using 6mm. Let's zoom in a little bit. I've made my 4 little awkward little squares here of my first unit. And what I'm going to do is I'm coming out of the 2 top units. Now I'm coming out of the corner right here. Now on this one, we're going to pick up a crystal first, no 11-0, just a crystal, and then an 11-0, and then a crystal. Just like this. And then, just a little closer, we're coming out of this side. I'm going to turn my work and go into the opposite side my thread is coming out of. And I'm going to pull it down. I'm going to bring these little crystals forward like this. Then I'm coming out of the 8-0 right here. So now I'm going to go into these side 8-0s right here. And then I'm going to go down into the 2 bottom 8-0s, just opposite of the 8-0s that we have our crystals coming out of. Right here. And then I'm going to pick up a crystal. And then I'm going to go through this 8-0 right here. And pull it through, and I've got my thread all messed up, but there we go. Now I've got 3 crystals on here, just like this. And I'm going to pick up another crystal. And I'm coming out of the 11-0. I'm going to go down into these 8-0s on the bottom here. Just like that. Pull it tight. And now I have 1 embellishment, just like that. So what I'm going to do then is I'm going to sew up, I'm coming out of these bottom ones, I'm going to sew up these 2 here. And then I'm going to sew into these 2 top ones here. And I'm going to start my next embellishment. We'll do it one more time here. So, I hope I was in frame there. So we have sewn from this bottom into the side and into the top of the next unit here, just like that. Now we're going to pick up a crystal, an 11-0 seed bead, and a crystal. We're coming out of this side, we're going to go into this side of the beads that we're coming out of and pull our crystals down and up here, just like that. And then we're coming out of these beads, we're going to go down into the side beads of the same unit, pull our thread through, come into the opposite beads of the ones that your crystals are coming out of, come through, pick up a crystal, an 11-0 seed bead, or no, just a crystal. We have an 11-0. We're just going to pick up 1 crystal, sorry about that, and then into the 11-0 here, pull it down, arrange them, and then pick up another crystal and come down into the bottom seed beads here. Just like that. And then you'd be in position to do the next one. So you would just pick up, because you're in the bottom or the top of this unit, the bottom of this unit, and you're in those 2 seed beads, so you would just pick up your next crystal and your 11-0 and your crystal, and then you're just going to sew down into these 2 here, just like that, and you're going to sew down into the side ones. And just do it so you can see what the completed unit will look like here. So now I need another crystal. I'm going to turn my work, go into this 11-0 right here, pick up a crystal, go into the 2, they're kind of squishy up here, but I can figure out which 2 they are here. And straighten them out as I do this. There we go. When I pull this down, that should straighten my unit a little bit. Just like that. And then you can just sew down into the middle. And then into the top beads of your empty unit here. And again, you will pick up a crystal, an 11-0 seed bead, and a crystal. And then you're coming out of this side, you're going to this side. Whoops. Pull. I need a couple more crystals here, I didn't put enough out. And then I'm coming out of the top beads here. I'm going to sew down side beads. Come here. Well, I got one. Should go into the other one. My unit's a little squishy here. There, that kind of pulls those 2 straight. And then I'm going to pick up another crystal, come up through the 11-0, pull. That'll kind of straighten those beads on the bottom a little. Then I've got another crystal. I'm going to come through the 2 bottom beads and secure everything. And then I would just sew into these 2 here and start my ladder stitch for my next unit. So I go into here, and then I'd secure it and I'd make my ladder stitch, turn it over, sew through, get to the next unit and make my ladder stitch. And that is what your unit will look like if you use 4mm bicones instead of 6mm bicones.